Hello, everybody. This is the Chocolate News Podcast. I'm your co host, John Alexander Reese.
And I'm your co-host, Andrea Carter.
And if you did not know, the Cincinnati Herald has been around since 1955 and is the leading African American owned newspaper in the greater Cincinnati area and northern Kentucky area. How's it going, Andrea?
Oh, it's going great, John. It is a fabulous week. The weather is in that sweet spot of not too hot, not too cold. There's a lot of great news going on this week. Oh my God, it's just incredible. And Juneteenth is just around the corner. I'm just a little excited, a little happy person. So
Oh, yeah, definitely. So, what is the chocolate news of the week?
Well, it's a lot of interesting things that happened. The most exciting thing that happened was the conviction of Hunter Biden on the three felony charges that everyone knew that he admitted to when when he had a drug, I should say, when he was drug addicted, when he had a cocaine addiction, I should say, he bought a gun when he wasn't supposed to. He made a false claim about that. And unfortunately, he got convicted of it. There was a plea deal that got thrown out in court because the judge asked questions. Overall, he was found guilty, and now he is awaiting sentencing, I think, in July. His family has come out in support of him, and Biden said that he accepts the will of the jury, and this is how the real law works, and that whatever happens to his son, he stands behind him. There was a wonderful picture of them hugging yesterday when they met up in Delaware, and they just hugged for several minutes. I think Hunter needed his dad, and he needed his mom, and he got it. So, you know, he even Hunter Biden said that he knows what he did wrong. He's going to accept the consequences, even though he's turned his life around. But he knows that it's just a horrible situation, but he's accepting it.
Hmm.
So we'll see what happens. I will note that it's interesting the Democrats have not reacted or said anything about his conviction. They're accepting it. The Republicans, on the other hand, are trying to use it. So it's kind of sad. But that being said, I'm moving on because this is going to be real quick. And interesting, you never know when there's going to be a first. In Northern Ireland, everyone should know the name Lillian. I'm going to probably brutalize her name, Sino Barr. And she is the first Black mayor and the only third Black mayor to be elected in Ireland. She was installed as the mayor of Derry City and Strabane at a special city council meeting this past Monday. 14 years ago, she was a refugee from Kenya. And she said it was an honor to become first a citizen of Ireland, and now she's honored to serve the community as their mayor. So congratulations to her. And I haven't been to Ireland in a long time, and I love that place. The area is beautiful. The people are very, very nice. But the fact that there's a first going on even in Ireland, which is 99.5% white and very small smidgen of Black or any immigration. It's unbelievable that she's been elected mayor. So I think this is a promising for the world, and I think it's fantastic. Second, Mexico did a first. They elected their first Mexican female president this past week, which is a first in all of their elections, which is unbelievable. This is their first female mayor. She is also the product of the University of Texas in Arlington, which is interesting. So she is women do hold key positions in Mexico, but normally it's the men who hold the higher positions, not the female ones. So she was handpicked by her successor to run for president. She won 60% of the vote. She is part of the ruling party, the Morena Party. So her name is Claudia Scheinbaum, and she is the former Mexico City mayor. And we're going to see good things for her, and hopefully for the best. I'm going to do this real quick. Also, what's been interesting is again, Biden, he signed the new act for asylum, making it more stringent for people to seek asylum from Mexico. It's going to be interesting to see the feedback on that new federal regulation that he signed into law. So we'll just see what happens with that. And then what's interesting, two other big things. One, in Philadelphia, the Philadelphia Orchestra Hall renamed its main concert hall after the legendary Marian Anderson. That just happened this week. Marian Anderson is known for performing outside of the Abraham Lincoln statue in DC after the Daughters of the American Revolution refused to allow her to perform in DC's main concert hall way back when. So after that, she has performed all over the world. She did perform a number of times in Philadelphia. And because they loved her so much in Philly, they finally decided to honor her and rename the concert hall after her. So that is a big win for Marian Anderson. What a wonderful honor for that. Also, another legend who recently passed is Jerry West, the NBA legend Jerry West, who was known for his performance on the court. He was an inspiration to the NBA for a long time. In fact, believe he helped create the NBA logo, the current logo that they have. He was 86 when he passed. One other person who has impacted the world, both in music, in on stage, and in the tequila industry and in the fashion industry, is P. Diddy. Unfortunately, P. Diddy is going through a little difficulties right now because he's under investigation. And what is unfortunate, Howard University had granted him an honorary degree. They have taken it back. They announced this just this past week, and they decided that he no longer gets to keep the degree, but also P. Diddy had pledged $1 million through his foundation, which began back in 2016. And unfortunately, they have reneged on, they no longer want his pledge. They no longer want his money, I should say, and they no longer want him to have the degree or any association with Howard University. Which is kind of sad, but they said that, they are severing their ties with Sean Combs because of the assault that he did on his ex-girlfriend, Cassie. And because of that alone, I think also the other things have been going on where he's been named in a lawsuit and the FBI investigation and the raid. I think of the culmination of everything, they're severing their ties with P. Diddy. And last but not least, which I'm finding most exciting, it is almost Juneteenth. In Cincinnati, there was a piece that came out, I believe, in the Inquirer, listing all of the Juneteenth celebrations starting this weekend through next week, through the holiday. And there's a lot going on. I mean, it went from barely anyone recognizing Juneteenth to this one little celebration in Eden Park. Then once it became a holiday, everyone has embraced it and is now just everywhere. There are celebrations on Friday. There's a celebration in the Wyoming Civic Center. There is the Juneteenth Career Fair at the Kentucky Career Center in Covington, Kentucky. Volunteer Park in Gulf Manor is having a Juneteenth celebration on Saturday. You will see believe it or not, Norwood is doing a Juneteenth flag racing. And then there's going to be a Freedom Day parade in Randolph Park in Covington. Covington is also having their Juneteenth festival. There's going to be one in Bernadette Watkins Park in Newport. And then also in Eden Park on Sunday, there'll be the Juneteenth Festival from 2 to 6 p.m. They're going to have the flag raising. There's going to be a lot of fun. There's also going to be a Father's Day concert and everything else. There's a lot going on next week. There's a number of events going on around the city, including Urban League is holding a Juneteenth celebration in their parking lot right near South Avondale School on Wednesday, June 19th. So I would just say check it out. There's a lot of Juneteenth celebration going on, even the morning edition, all things considered, Urban Roots, they're all on NPR, which you can listen to on WVXU. They're all doing Juneteenth shows on that day. So it's going to be interesting. Even the Freedom Center will have something. Their Juneteenth Jubilee will be going on. So that is all what's going on this week. It's going to be Juneteenth celebration, remembering and celebrating the history of Black folks. And if you don't want to participate in that, but you want a little bit of smooth groove, like we said before, check out the NPR Tiny Desk concerts for Black music, Black History Music, Black Music Month, because they just dropped Shaka Khan playing all of her top hits, and oh my God, it's wonderful. So, and that is all the chocolate news for today.
All right. Well, thank you, Andrea. And now we're going to move on to the second part of our show. And Andrea, we have a guest with us, don't we?
Yes, yes, we do. Elijah Hyman. Many people don't know his name yet, but he is a member of the Democratic Party, but he is a young 20-something voter in the in the city of Cincinnati. And he has a very unique perspective because he's an operative within the Democratic Party, but he can provide an understanding of why we're hearing all these news stories about young people are skeptical about Biden, where older people are not, that generational divide about who's voting for what and why it's so important to vote. Elijah, did I do you justice?
I think you did. Thank you so much for having me.
So I know we're going to have many conversations about this, and I know Biden's numbers since the conviction of the felony conviction of Donald Trump, his numbers have improved a little bit because people don't want to vote for a felon. But that being said, there is still a push and pull effect going on, and the race is still tight. From your perspective as a young person, as a young voter, what's going on? From your perspective, what do we need to know?
Well, personally, I think that a divide comes in the younger and older generations of the Black community in the United States based off of lived experiences. I think that for older African Americans who are more willing and are more vocal about wanting to vote for President Biden again, they can see it in a sense of they grew up hearing directly from their parents and grandparents who were not afforded the opportunities, and they see it as it is their right and their job to protect their rights and their children and grandchildren's rights and all of that. With a younger Black generation who grew up a little bit more comfortable in the political world, who were born with these rights and who, like myself, my parents have always voted, my grandparents have always voted. I myself never experienced having to see my grandparents or an older African American person not be able to vote.
Mhm.
So when it comes to the younger generation now, I think that it's more of a they want to see direct consequences or benefits when they vote for someone. They want to see what can they do exactly for me, not necessarily what has happened historically in the past to people who looked like them, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. I mean, it's kind of like having grown up, me being at the tail end of the baby boom generation. I've seen the other side of my parents knew what it's like not to vote, then vote. But for
Exactly.
me, I've always been able to vote. But I understand why it's so important because my grandmother, family members instilled in me that understanding. But at the same time, is it for young people today, is it more the fact that we live in an on-demand world where we can have a lot of things our way? So do they want the government their way instead of what it is? Or am I being too broad or too thinking too much?
I agree with how you phrased it at the beginning that it's we live in an on-demand society. You can go on your phone and you can easily find information in 10 seconds. You can go on Amazon and easily order something that'll be delivered the next day. So it's easy for people who grew up in this digital age, in this on-demand age, to not have to think about uh, what voting now, how that will affect elections in 20 years, how an election 30 years ago is affecting us right now and is affecting the political climate now. It's easy to get lost in those things. Now, there are some older parents, grandparents who are teaching young people how that has worked. Like my parents did the same. My parents have always been very politically aware and active and have instilled that in my brother and I, but I can still find myself getting lost in that on-demand age and time and not being able to visualize how what it is right now, how that's affecting things 30 years from now, how Donald Trump's election in 2016 will influence the court system for the next 15, 20 years. It's easy to not have to think like that.
True. That is true. Even though, I mean, with the ethical issues regarding the Supreme Court right now, with Justice Alito and Clarence Thomas, they're seeing that the lack of, I would say, support or belief in the Supreme Court is waning because of the ethical issues that have been ongoing but not public until now.
Right.
Do you see that having some influence on young people, especially regarding this tug of war over the law and the weaponization of this and the weaponization of that? Do you think young people are being very cynical about it or just taking it with a grain of salt?
Personally, for that exact question, how you worded it, I don't think that that plays a huge role. I think that there has always been and will probably continue to be, unfortunately, a lack of attention towards the judiciary and the judicial system. Like in Ohio, we're one of, I believe, 27 states who votes for judges, and people never realize that you vote for judges, and people don't really pay attention to the judicial system unless it's right in front of their face. So I could take a guess and say that here in Hamilton County and in Cincinnati, a lot of African American people could probably name more local judges than they could Supreme Court justices. And that's just because you oftentimes find yourselves looking more locally when it comes to things like that. So I think that there should be more attention to the Supreme Court. I don't think that that problem specifically is on the forefront of a lot of young Black people's minds when voting.
I think, do you think with the influence of the number of prosecutors who have cases against 45 has brought to the forefront the legal system, like Alvin Bragg, like Letitia James, like Fonnie Willis. In fact, of what the cases they have pending, besides what's been said about them, do you think that has any influence on young people?
I think to a small degree it might, because along with parents and grandparents instilling in young people a sense of wanting to be politically aware, they have truly ingrained in the minds of young Black people that we don't live in a system that's made for us. And so we have grown up all seeing how the judicial system and the prosecutorial system treats us unfairly. So I think that more attention has been placed on Donald Trump's federal cases and all of his criminal cases, because it is good to see that it is not just Black people that are being affected in that way, but it is also good to see that he did not just get off from his cases. And so I think that that specifically will draw more attention from young Black people into what's going on, knowing that he was just convicted of 34 felonies, I believe.
Yes.
Um, Seeing that and hearing that will help us to believe that we can move forward in this system. And because of the headlines, it will get younger Black people to pay more attention to the election this year.
In terms of elections this year, do you think the young people are paying more attention to what's going on locally, or at least on the state level, than on a national level? Or is it just it's a trickle down effect? Or should I say
Um,
trickle up effect?
I would say it's definitely a trickle down effect. I believe we all know that federal elections, presidential years draw out way more turnout than any other years. I believe we're going to be expecting a 72 to 73% turnout just this election year. And just 2 years ago in 2022 in Hamilton County alone, we only hit, I believe, 48 or a little bit around 50%, which isn't high, but it needs to be higher. And so I think that every time, whenever there's a presidential election, more people are going to come out, which will at least give us the chance as local political operatives and activists to get them more engaged and help them focus and look more into what's going on locally. Here in Hamilton County, we have a huge race where we have a chance for the Democratic Party to flip the prosecutor seat, which hasn't been held by a Democrat in almost 100 years. So that, along with the how am I trying to word this? With the
Well,
heightened
the
sense of the judiciary now might be able to get more people involved in looking at what's going on at the judicial level, federally, statewide, and locally.
well, on the county level, I know Alicia Reese is running for reelection.
Yes.
Is Denise Driehaus up also for reelection this year?
Yes, she is.
So we're having two county commissions. Is there deep opposition to both of them or no?
No, if I can talk with a little bit of bias, I don't think that the Republican Party has tried very hard to find good and qualified candidates for our local elections recently. So I don't think either of their races will have a tough battle.
I know that they're running oh, what's his name? Souza?
Yeah, Orlando Sanza is
Oh,
running against Congressman Landsman.
yeah, I
Yes.
mean, like this guy, he comes around, but he doesn't come around. I mean, his name, he's been running for a while. Every election, his name is on the ballot for one thing or another. Um, but I don't see him in the community. Um,
Well,
I,
I
I
mean, no, he doesn't even live in the district that he's running in.
I think that's a problem. I think that's because I see his name on the ballot. I recognize him. I've even spoken to him at one of the polling centers one time. I just happened to meet him. And but I'm just like, who are you? You don't see him involved in the community any other way other than on the ballot box.
Exactly.
And I think that, he reminds me of what they used to call the old carpetbag, coming in and running for a position um, because they need someone to run. I mean, I think Greg Landsman has a strong hold on District 1. And I think it's going to be interesting to see the outcome of who's voting for what this year and how it's going to vote. I mean, the District 6 race that just occurred was close for a Democrat to take over District 6. I should say Congressional District 6. The Republican candidate won by 9 votes. And that was close. And the Republican Party did not expect that in that
No.
district. And that was the district that carried Donald Trump, and it almost went Democrat.
Yeah,
So is that a signal that the GOP in Ohio is divided because they've been in control for so long that people are starting to recognize that we need a change?
well, I can attest and I can say that the GOP in Ohio has not known what they're doing. They put up two ballot measures last year, which were very unpopular with their own voters. And I think that their own voters have caught on to that as well. And knowing that they tried to take away their rights 2 times just on the ballot last year, I think people are paying attention to that. And so
Also,
I think that hopefully that can translate well into our statewide elections this year. Ohio is the only state in the country that has the chance to flip their Supreme Court this year. And I really hope that that happens.
It's going to be interesting. Um, okay. But I would just say that it is it's going to be an interesting year this year on this election. I know the debate's coming up, so I know we're going to have you back to talk about that and a few other things down the road with a few other people down the road. So I just want to say thank you, Elijah, for stopping by and giving us a chance just to start the conversation about what young people are seeing. We're going to have to get an older person on as well, but thank you for stopping by and speaking with us today.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
John?
All right, folks. Well, that's it for today's show. And I want to thank Andrea again for all the good chocolate news. Thank you so much, Andrea.
That is my pleasure.
And you can find more information about today's topics and past podcast episodes at www.cincinnatiherald.com, the Sesh newsletter, or on our social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Threads. And make sure to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast app. Our podcast is on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn Radio, Amazon, YouTube, and Google Podcasts. I'm John Alexander Reese,
And I'm Andrea Carter.
and have a good day.